Okay, so hello everyone, welcome back to my class, and today we are going to talk about the world geography once again. And today's topic of our discussion would be next continent of the world, which is Africa. So far we have done two classes, guys. One we have done with the North America, and we have also done the map marking of Central America and South America, right? So these two continents we have already covered. In this particular course, as you know, what we do is we always do the map marking, but today I have something very special for you. So see, for example, today we are going to mark African continent. All the political features, all the physical features, both will be covered in today's class. So I will make sure that in today's class you will not only learn geography, but you will also get to know certain important topics in world history as well as international relations and the world events overall. So, for example, whatever important topics like Suez Canal will be doing today. Apart from Suez Canal, will be doing. Will try to understand the Suez crisis, what that happened politically, that happened in the past. I will, and since African continent is in the focus, I will also make you understand the India-Africa relations, right? So whatever topic we are going to cover here, we will also make sure that I try to connect that with the Indian perspective, Indian context. Why Africa is important? Why you should know about African continent? Because India has so many interest in Africa. So to protect those interests, we have to understand the African continent, with which country, what kind of relations we are having, with which country we are having trade relations, with which we are having colonial relations, So all these things will be covered in today's class. And guys, you can always follow my courses on Unacademy Plus. You can follow my all the courses by joining Unacademy Plus. Those who have not joined so far, they can join me on Unacademy Plus by using this referral code ASHISH MALIK, and then they will get a 10% discount, and they will also get my free test series. Those who will join this, they will also get my free test series, right? So please note this down, and you can always tell this to your friends. आप बता सकते हैं अपने दोस्तों को इस रेफरल कोड के बारे में. So guys, let's begin with the world geography. Learn world geography through the map series. This is lecture number 3. This is lecture number 3. 2 lectures we have already done. So we have done the North America with you. We have also done the South America and Central America. Both we have done in last class. So today the focus point we have is Africa. So as you can see, guys, on your screen, so we have this Africa in front of you, and we are going to learn a lot of things from this perspective. And there are so many important concepts that we are supposed to learn in this particular class, right? So you have Africa. See, Africa is a big continent. So we are going to learn it into two parts, right? We are going to learn Africa. I have divided Africa into two parts, so the northern part and the southern part. So this is the way we'll be covering it, because it's a huge continent, it's a big continent, and we cannot do it one single go, right? So we have to learn it part wise. So first thing is first, guys. In Africa, this is the second largest continent in the world after Asia. So Africa is the second largest continent. It is the second largest continent after Asia. So Asia is largest continent in the world, and Africa is the second largest continent in the world, right? And guys, whenever you have doubt, you can always ask me up. So this is the second largest continent we are talking about, and Africa, it is still known by the name called the Dark Continent. It is known as the land of dark continents. It is known as the land of dark continents, or simply Africa is also known as the dark continent. The reason behind that, there is no racial kind of reason. It is nothing to do with the color of the people or something. It is called the dark continent. The reason is because the inner countries, or the interior countries, or the inner or interior countries, got discovered very late. They got discovered very late. People all from the very beginning, since the medieval times, the major focus was on, you say, on the outer parts of the Africa. This part was majorly explored first, the coastal parts. The inner portion, the inner Africa, was discovered very late, so people had very less knowledge about the inner parts of Africa, and that is why it used to be called as the dark continent, the land of dark continents, right? So the entire thing is important for us, guys. We have to pay attention towards, all the countries, but I don't want you to just cram all the countries. I really don't want that. I want you to focus on lot many things else we have to focus on. So like major countries, will be covering the major countries, and whenever it is required, I will also make you cover certain other facts, right? So we are going to start marking up, this is the African continent. First, let's focus on the political map of Africa. So we'll start with this country. We'll start with the Morocco. The very first country we'll be talking about. Let's start from Morocco, right? So Morocco is a very important country, and it holds its importance because, see, if you can see African land mass, we have North Atlantic Ocean on the west side, you know, we have Mediterranean Sea on this particular side. So Mediterranean is a very important water body which is on the north of Africa, and we have Atlantic Ocean on the west. You have the Red Sea here, you have the Gulf of Aden, and from here starts the Indian Ocean. Here we have Indian Ocean. So Africa has Indian Ocean on one side and Atlantic Ocean on the other side. This is entire Atlantic, and this is we have is Indian Ocean. So like I told you guys, we have to start from Morocco. Morocco is the first one we are going to mark. The reason is because of this Strait of Gibraltar. Can you see this, guys? This is a strait. We have Spain on the top. This country is Spain, and this is Morocco. So between Spain and Morocco, we have the Strait of Gibraltar. Please note it down. This is called the Strait of Gibraltar. Strait of Gibraltar. It is called. You know what is a strait? I have told you many times, guys. Strait means a small water body connecting the two major water bodies. It's not straight because it is connecting the two land masses. No, strait means small water body connecting two big or large water bodies. So this Strait of Gibraltar is actually connecting the North Atlantic Ocean with the Mediterranean Sea, sorry. So since these two larger water bodies are connected by a small water body, this is called Strait of Gibraltar. And this Strait of Gibraltar has a lots of importance for, especially for Europe and other trade relations. You know, the whole world prefer the trade by the oceans, right? So water route is something we all prefer, and this is the entry point. So if suppose any European or like Western European country, if they want to trade with Asia, so they have to come from this Strait of Gibraltar. So this is very strategic point, guys, and you must remember this strait. It is of very significant importance. It's very strategic, I would say. It is very strategic place. So any Western country, if they have to come from this point only, and then from Suez Canal they can enter into Indian Ocean. And this is exactly the path which was followed by British colonial powers to control and rule over India, right? So Strait of Gibraltar is the first point that you have to remember. Please mark this up, Strait of Gibraltar. So after this, Morocco has a capital called Rabat. So Morocco is quite important. So you should know the capital as Rabat, its capital. And guys, it also has a very famous port called Casablanca. It's a very important place. The place is called as Casablanca. And Casablanca is a port in Morocco. It is a port. It's a very famous port, guys. You should know Casablanca port. Even there is a Hollywood movie called Casablanca, and it is also based on this particular port. Very important, very interesting story. You can always read about that later. Okay, so I told you about Strait of Gibraltar, Morocco we have done, right? See guys, Africa has lots of countries, right? You don't have to pay attention to all the countries of Africa. You don't have to cram all the capitals. If by chance, if there is any country which is in news, if there is any country which is in news, then it becomes important. Suppose if there is any country which was recently visited by the Prime Minister of India or President of India, you know, if by chance any country is being visited by Prime Minister or President, then it becomes really important and you have to learn all the geography about that. Suppose if Prime Minister visits Nigeria, let's say Indian Prime Minister visits Nigeria, so Nigeria, you have to remember all the nearby. It is surrounded by which countries, which is the Gulf, like Gulf of Guinea is to the south of Nigeria. Then it becomes important. So if any country is in the news for any reason, be it from Indian perspective or any reason, then you have to prepare it in detail. Otherwise, you can skip the countries too much detail. So overall view would be more than enough. Clear, Shikha? So this is the way you are supposed to do. Okay. So talking about the countries, the second one I would like to, okay. And since guys, now this is important, you have to prepare the countries which are having the coast associated with the Mediterranean Sea. So this is the Mediterranean Sea and it has its border right from this point to this is the entire coast of Mediterranean Sea, right? So the very common question which can be asked in your prelims is which of the following country has or shares its coastline with the Mediterranean Sea. So please mark it up and you can note down in your information book that Mediterranean Sea has boundary with Morocco, has boundary with Algeria, boundary with Tunisia, boundary with Libya, and boundary with Egypt. So these five countries, right? These five countries, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, these are the five countries from African continent. I'm not covering the European countries as of now. So just from African perspective, these are the five which are making a coastline with the Mediterranean Sea. And that you have to remember. It is really, really very important for the prelims. Generally, these kind of questions are asked. Okay, which countries are border Mediterranean Sea is bordered by which of the following countries? That way, it's a very common question which can be asked in your exam. And this way at least five countries will be in your mind. You will remember the five countries, at least you will remember them. Clear? And one more important point, all these five countries, they are Arab countries. They are Arab countries, all these five. These are five Arab countries. So the north of Africa is basically dominated by the Islamic countries. So north of Africa we have the Islamic influence, and it also, because see, this is Saudi Arabia, this is Arabian Peninsula, right? So definitely it has a population which is having relations with the Middle East. So because of the Middle East population coming and residing in these areas, we have Arab influence, Arab population in these five countries of Africa. So if someone asks you why we have Islamic dominance in this area, because of the Arabian Peninsula, because of the population migrating from these places to the nearby places. So this is Arab country areas, these five, right? Algeria is still very famous country, guys. Algeria is very famous. Though we have Atlas Mountains in Morocco, these area, Algeria, Liberia. These here we also have the Sahara Desert. We will cover that in the physical features. But as of now, you have to remember that Algeria used to be a colony of France. France used to have a rule on Algeria, and it is very famous for its wine cultivation. Wine production is very famous in Algeria. It's very famous for the wine cultivation that you have to remember. The next country which is our focus here and that you should know about is actually Tunisia. This Tunisia is very, very important. Well, Tunisia is famous because Tunisia is the place from where the Arab Spring started. We will cover Arab Spring in detail, right? So don't worry about that. It's a major topic of our discussion today. So Tunisia, Arab Spring has happened. This was a revolution time for the entire of the Arab world. So Arab Spring start point was Tunisia. So definitely it is very important historically. It is very important culturally. It has its own importance. Right, guys? And Tunis is the capital of Tunisia. Tunisia's capital, when I'm saying it's two very important country, you should know the capital also. Capital is Tunis. Tunis is the capital of Tunisia. Having said that, since I've mentioned about the Arab Spring, we should know about the Arab Spring because this is also a very important part that you should be covering in your, though it is not exactly the part of geography, but I feel I should cover Arab Spring because recently there was a news of having Arab Spring 2.0. Since it has this news has been revived recently, so definitely we should be covering that for our syllabus, guys. You never know, this can come in your GS2 somewhere somehow because India has a lot of stakes here. So we have to understand how India would be impacted with the Arab Spring if it happens, right? So recently, guys, it is in the news because Algeria and Sudan, the protest which started against the government has entered a critical phase in which protesters and militaries are at the standoff. And with this, there is a possibility that the protesters could move to the Arab countries as well, resembling the earlier Arab Spring almost a decade ago. Almost 10 years back, 2010 onwards, we had seen the Arab Spring. So these two countries, please locate these two countries on the world map, guys, Algeria and Sudan. Here we have Algeria and here we have Sudan, right? So these two countries, these are the countries which are seeing the Arab Spring 2.0. This is important, like 2.2, 2.0 is very important, right? This 2.0 is really important, right? So that's why it has been in the news once again. And what was the Arab Spring? First, let me tell you this. What was the Arab Spring? In 2010, I told you, Arab Spring was a series of anti-government protests, uprisings, and armed rebellions that actually spread across the Middle East. It started in Tunisia, it spread across all the Middle East. And that was violent protest, uprisings, and armed rebellion, which was anti-government protest. So oppressive regimes and low standard of living was the spark. Beginning the protest in Tunisia, social media played the role of catalyst behind the swift spread of revolution throughout the world as new protests appear in response to the success stories shared from those taking place in the other countries globally. So social media actually showed its power that time that yes, a revolution can actually fly like a fire, and social media can play the role of catalyst in spreading that fire of revolution all around the world. So Tunisia, the things where the things started in Tunisia actually spread all across the world. So effects of this Arab Spring is also called Tunisian Revolution, right? So the effects of Tunisian Revolution spread like fire to the five countries. So majorly the five countries got impacted by Arab Spring. They were the Libya, Yemen, Egypt, Bahrain, and Syria. So Libya is in Africa, Egypt is in Africa, and these are in the Middle East. Bahrain, Syria, and Yemen, they are the other one. So they were either the regime which were toppled, or major uprisings or social violence occurred, including the riots, civil wars, mass murdering, and insurgency. It all happened during the Arab Spring. So demonstrations took in the countries like Morocco, Iraq, Algeria, these Iranian area, Lebanon, Jordan, Oman, Sudan, Kuwait. Everywhere the demonstrations happened, and the wave of initial revolution, which was initial revolution kind of stuff, these faded by mid 2012 as many Arab Spring demonstrators were met with violent responses from authorities. Actually, the whole movement, the whole protest, the whole rebellion and revolution was actually crushed by violence from the authorities, and the whole Arab Spring actually got crushed down in 2 years. 2012, mid 2012, the whole thing actually broke down, and these attacks were actually answered with the violence from protesters, and large scale conflicts resulted into the Syrian civil war. Even we had seen Syria had a civil war, Iraqi insurgency happened in the Egyptian crisis, Yemen crisis, civil and Libyan civil wars. And somewhere somehow, if you see, because of the Arab Spring kind of stuff, ISIS actually gained a lot. The Islamic State of this terror group, Islamic State, actually those areas impacted by the Arab Spring, or we had seen a kind of civil war, actually benefited the growth of ISIS. So ISIS, Islamic State of area, Iraq and Syria, this ISIS actually took a hold on Libya, Syria, and all these Iraqi nearby areas where we had the civil war, right? Hi Himanshu Ranjan. So same kind of stuff might happen again. We are very much doubtful for Arab Spring 2.0. So the latest versions which we have seen in Sudan and Algeria, it might happen again in the Arab Spring 2.0, right? So now we have to see if these kind of stuff happens, then how and where the things will go around. So how Arab Spring and India are related, we have to see. It's really important, guys, how Arab Spring and India is related, because India has a long standing historical and cultural relations with the West Asia. So for India in particular, West Asia is significantly important region. From the very beginning, India has a very high stake in the West Asian region. So people to people contact have actually existed between India and West Asia for centuries. India has been a supporter of Palestinian cause and has actually demanded a comprehensive relationship with Palestinian state of the people. Any development in the region has direct implication for India. If anything happens in the Middle East, if anything happens in the Western region, it has direct impact with India and India's interest and India's stake. So there are nearly 6.5 million Indians living and working in West Asian region. The very first interest of India is that our people, almost 6.5 like almost 65 lakh Indians, they are living and working in the West Asian region. Very first point of interest for India. And according to the World Bank report, India receives almost 80 billion US dollar in remittances during 2018, and a majority of remittances came from this particular region. So whatever money those 65 lakh Indians are earning, they're sending back home. So Indian economy is getting benefited because of that incoming of the money. So that remittances, West Asia contributes a lot. So definitely, guys, India always want a peaceful. India always want a peace in that area, right? Because if you want to secure our trade interests, our economic interests, then definitely we have to take care of these peaceful kind of stuff happening over there. So West Asia, the more peaceful it would be, it is going to be extremely important for India, right? And in addition to that, India's total trade with West Asia actually exceeded 210 billion US dollars. So this region, this West Asian region, is very very important in total for India, especially for India's energy security, because nearly two-thirds of our hydrocarbon imports are from this region only. So now you know why India might get impacted again if Arab Spring 2.0 happens, because India has a very high stake. India has to take care of its energy requirements, energy security, and two-third hydrocarbon is not a joke. We have to take care, because India is a energy hungry country, right? We don't have enough energy for our 140 crore population, so we have to take care. We have to increase our sources where we can secure the energy security for India, right? So definitely, guys, India has a very high stake on that, and that's how India has to take care. Though the notes I have made, you can also read further. So Indian stakes I've told you. So what kind of conclusion you can make from there? Okay, so you can also read that. You can also read that India was one of the 10 founding members of the Community of Democracies and leading co-founder of UN Democracy Fund. right? And India hasn't just a moral stake but also national interest in building on the record. On this record in the new Middle East, Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, Yemen, Syria, and Gulf states they will need to establish the institutions of good governance from strong political parties to independent judiciary. So, New Delhi's advice and assistance would make these countries better home for Indian workers. We really want to secure our interest in these areas. So we have just marked Egypt, we have marked Tunisia, we have marked Libya, Yemen, Syria, and Gulf are definitely different. We'll be covering that in Middle East. So if by chance the crisis of governance in the Arab world also present opportunity to strengthen US-India ties. So whenever Arab world has had that governance crisis, India actually sees opportunity to strengthen its ties with the US. Whether working together with India or independently toward the similar end, the world's two largest democracy, because India is the world's largest democracy, US is the world's oldest democracy, they actually bring complementary strengths to the hard task of building a culture of democracy across the Arab world. So, what kind of conclusion we can make here? Well, as far as Sudan, developments in Sudan and Algeria, they have gone in the right direction, but there is also a lot that can still go wrong, considering the road to democracy is full of traps and pitfalls, because Sudan, Algeria, they want democratic setup, and if recent Arab Spring experiences are anything to go by, the worst is yet to come, especially as generals continue to vie for the control. But the long silence Sudanese and Algerians majorities and their invisible elites, they have defied all the scare campaigns and warned of decent chaos. Let's see, guys, how it happens in the future. We have to watch a close one. So, if by chance Arab Spring 2.0 will take place, more creativities to continue to use accessible means, India definitely has to secure its relations somehow, somewhere in this whole democratic upside down, right? It's a very important thing that we have just discussed. So, guys, do prepare Arab Spring. Do prepare Arab Spring 2.0. I've discussed all that because it is without discussing that, African map marking would not be that effective. So, right, I wanted to discuss all these things with you. I hope the things are clear so far. Now, Tunisia we have discussed with you. Tunisia's Arab Spring we have discussed with you. Now we have to see the other countries of Africa. Guys, if you have any doubt, please mention in the comment section box.